Councillors, we're about to go live. Just make sure our phones are on silent.
What? Mine's on silent.
I think you need to check.
You,
Oh no.
Mr.
Already done that, buddy.
Just wait for the CEO to come back. Rush out. Just so councillors aware, as you probably realise at the first meeting, we had an opportunity just to say a few words. I think it'd be nice to afford councillors the opportunity to do that again. Just remember that it is not an election platform. It's not an opportunity to launch your campaign a couple of days out. So if you can just make sure that you speak of things that are relevant rather than things that relate to the election. Welcome councillors and staff to our final ordinary meeting for this term. Also to those members in the gallery. It's a special day for all of us. So we will kick off today with our acknowledgement of country, which councillor has that.
I think anybody picked it. Sorry. I think it's...
Councillor Mill.
Nada Wanyuramam. Hello, welcome everyone. I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of land which we're meeting on today, which is the Gubbi people, and also extend that acknowledgement to the people of the Western region, the Waka Waka, and the coastal strip being the Budgera. I recognise their continuing connection to land, sea and country, and I hope that we draw on their wisdom of leadership throughout the many years of being in existence. I'd also like to make mention to Budgera law, which is what is good for the country comes first. If it is not yours, do not touch, and if you have plenty, share. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I extend these respects to any other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today and their elders past, present.
We'll continue now and welcome Jim Dobsworth from the Community Church to say a few words of wisdom and then lead us in prayer. Thank you.
I'm not sure how much wisdom I have, but I've got a little something I'd like to share with you guys. I just want to thank you everyone for having me here. It's really nice to be here with you all, and it's great to see that Glenn and Talitha are here and alive and well. I'm very thankful for that. I just wanted to keep things short and sweet. As a representative of Jesus Christ, I want to encourage you all that you're all seen and everything that you do matters, and the greatest thing that you can do is what Jesus did, and that's showing compassion to all those people around you. And in all that you do, may you be guided by the wisdom of Jesus and empowered by his strength to help you accomplish more than you could ever ask or imagine. I'd like to finish by speaking a blessing over you guys from the book of Numbers in the Bible. The Lord bless you and protect you, make his face shine upon you and show you his favour. May he set his face towards you and give you complete peace in your heart, your soul, your body and your spirit, and in every area of your life. Amen.
All rise, or those that can, we'll just take a minute of silence to remember and reflect on those who have passed away in our region recently. Thank you. We don't have any apologies or leave of absence. Disclosures of interest from anyone have an interest to disclose before we thank you. Before we begin with the recommendation, I think we might break as we have done in the past and just for those councillors that wish to take a few minutes to say a few words. We might start at Division 1 and work our way through in a numerical fashion. Those that wish to say, Councillor Moon, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Given that we are under the caretaker policy, I find it very difficult to mention anything that is to do with council operations, including achievements, concerns, joyous occasions. So I might keep it to appreciation of being able to work with a wonderful group of people, especially staff who have, you know, come and gone, but I believe that we have an excellent team to lead forward, and it's been a privilege to be able to work in this environment and be a representative of the community. So in keeping that, I do recognise this caretaker policy. I don't feel I should mention anything else. Thank you.
Question 2, Councillor Jensen.
I thought you would go first and cover most of it.
We try to keep the best to last. Councillor.
Mr Mayor, should you ask the staff in, because I think a number of us want to thank the staff.
If that's possible. Thank you, Councillor.
Here we go. Start?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I thought Glenn would start and most of it would be covered, not much left for me, so I just left it. I left it really short. But first of all, this is not about what I have achieved. It's about what we have achieved collectively. And I think we've all played a part in improving this region, even with the limitations that we've had. But one of my favourite and major wins, I would say, would be the Rocky Memorial Park, and that was a team effort. And that rock honours our Aboriginal soldiers. That was my first time in dealing with state things. I was a very new councillor, and I soon began to learn about bureaucratic red tape. After that, after dipping the toe in that, we got the naming of Uncle Jimmy's Creek at Glastonbury, and that was also dealing with state and wading through a quagmire of legislation yet again. Sometimes I feel like I've just gone around naming things because people ask. It is to be noted that these are residents' requests, and I was just helping them and to action them. There was the Scout Hall at Tin Can Bay, Warrendakin Bridge, the memorial seat at Tin Can Bay for Ron and Eve Jensen, and soon there'll be the Charlie Freeborn Park at Gunelda. In saying this, it's important that we remember our forebears and we honour their contribution to our community, because after all, it is our history. All in all, it's been a great 4 years. It's had its challenges, but now that I'm working out how to wade through the bureaucratic red tape, I'm hoping that the people will decide to allow me to serve another term, now that I'm a little wiser. So well done to everyone, the whole team, especially all of our staff that work so hard to keep this going. Thank you.
Councillor Ward, Division 3.
Division 3.
I think you've probably got a little bit more latitude, Councillor, given for re-election. There's no way for you to kick off.
Right, well, I guess it started after school here in Gympie, like most of us around here. Left school on a Friday, started my apprenticeship on a Monday. Finished my trade, finished that on a Friday, and my heart was set with fulfilling my duties as an Australian, and I served in the military for 9 years. Proud military service. This is where I learnt how to defend the peace, freedom, and most of all democracy of these great people of Australia. After those 9 years, I felt that home was where my heart is. It's where it lies. After 4 generations of a family tree here back in Gympie, I decided this is where I find love, warmth, and the beauty of this region.
When I came back home, I bought a business. This is where I learned business ethics, what it takes to create a dollar, what it takes to create employment, therefore raise a profit. And of course, with a profit, there's your byproduct. It's called a tax. The more profit you make, the more tax you pay, and you get a bit of an understanding of what your dollar is worth. I wanted to know what happens to that dollar. I wanted to practice democracy. So I threw my hat in the ring, and the wonderful people of Division 3 saw it in me, and they elected me. So here we are, right here, right now, after 4 years, sitting in this seat. The question's asked, why aren't I running again? I'd love to tell you why. Sometimes saying nothing speaks louder than words. Louder than words. Before these bureaucrats try to throw me in the jail for practising democracy, I'm done. I'm done.
Thank you, Councillor. Division 4. Thank you, Deborah.
It has been, I'm going to say it's been an honour serving the community in this position. By the same token, it's a job. It's a job, and the election is merely a job interview. We've had a difficult 4 years in many respects. We've had to deal with a lot of things which people who are alive today haven't mostly had to deal with. They haven't had to deal with the pandemic like we had, the lockdowns that came with it, and the decisions that had to be made around that. The series of floods, yeah, Gibby's had a lot of floods before, but it'd been 10 years since the previous one, and 120 years or something since the one that was the highest we've had in this region on record. That was the second highest. And then at the end of all that, just to top things off, we had an economy which suddenly heated up. And in many respects, just about undid the good works that we'd done leading up to it. I just want to say one of the things I'm most proud about with this group is that we have worked together despite differences of opinion, and we haven't come out with huge vanity projects which would probably win people over, but certainly would have cost ratepayers. Instead, we have taken to repairing and preparing the region for future growth, regardless of who gets in. I think they've got a really good platform to kick off from, and whoever's sitting around this table, come a month's time, I wish them the best of luck, and I hope they take the job as seriously as what we all have. So thank you to the people of Division 4 for giving me this role for the last 4 years. I've enjoyed it thoroughly, and thank you, Mayor, for your help in that period of time, and thank you every councillor here and staff for your input. I know it's difficult. I know that councillors are a funny breed, but so are you. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deborah. Councillor Stewart.
Mr Mayor, yes, thank you for the opportunity. I'll first pick on what Councillor Wardock said, that I think a lot of people come into being councillors, ideas, great change and whatever, and you end up hitting your head against a brick wall of not just bureaucracy, but financial realities, and the fact that we've got 1,800 kilometres or whatever of roads and we can only fix so much at a time. And so I can understand the frustration of leaving because of all the rules. As Councillor Devereux said, we've had things thrown at us: flood, pandemic, supply and worker shortages. But what has frustrated me most during this term is the own goals we picked. We stuffed up with the first CEO, I'm going to be honest, and I wish I had more strongly said no to him. We got our finances back in order, but then it's so easy to see how finances can get out of order because it's so easy for us to forget that it is easier to spend money than to earn it, and it's so easy to say, oh yes, we'll give money to this group or that group, but wait on. We keep doing that, we end up back in the hole we were before. So I have found that a frustration. I guess I'm a fiscal conservative, if you want to put it that way, and I know staff have been frustrated by the same thing. And the staff survey was definitely the low point, and yes, there's lots of reasons. We can blame the previous CEO. I think we also blame some of the attitudes of councillors. We get reports we don't like, and we almost like attacking staff rather than looking at the report on the merits. And I've seen that too often. So there's some of the frustrations. There's some really good things. We have some really good staff. I always seem to end up working with Ms Stark, who's such a great person from the community sector. Love working with Mr Watson on roads, and Ms Stenholm and Mr Rogers from planning and compliance, all that fun area. Lots of great staff, great directors, great bunch of directors up there now who are great to work with. And so we've got some really good senior people in place for our future. And I've enjoyed engaging with constituents. I try to be honest, so they don't always like the answer I give, because we don't have the endless pockets of money that they think we've got. And unfortunately, the road is number 10 on the list, not number 1 on the list. But it's always been good to engage with constituents about what we can and can't do, and try and be honest. And so I guess I will end with one of my favourite sayings, which is we have to manage expectations. We're never very good at that. But sometimes we just got to say we can't do that, or we can do that, but you're going to have to wait 20 years. So I am looking forward to hopefully being re-elected. I really want to be here. I enjoy the challenge. But I know whoever comes, if one of my 2 rivals get elected, they'll also be hitting their head against the brick wall, and that's fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Division 6.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm often asked why I do this job. I do this job because I enjoy it. I like to help the community as much as I can, and I will try and continue to do that. I'd like to thank Division 6 for giving me 2 terms as councillor. I've certainly done my best for Division 6, and I know it will be in good hands after election, hopefully. I've listened with interest to all the councillor comments. I understand Councillor Warlock's comments, understand them fully. But we are here, we're limited in ways, but we do make a difference as far as I'm concerned. I've especially enjoyed working with the present council. I think we've got on fairly well, most of us. I'd like to thank Mr Mayor, you've always been there, you do a great job, and we've sort of got on pretty well for the last 8 years, so thank you. Yeah, it's good, and I'm going to miss the old pensioner over there. We've had some good banter, Mr Councillor Freeman, and I'm sad to see you go. I really am. You're going to be missed, mate. And same to you, Shane. You've done a good job, mate. So I'm just happy to have had the 8 years, and we'll see what happens after this. I've moved to Tin Can. We'll see what history writes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Division 7.
Well, that'd be me. Right. What people wouldn't know is when I got voted in 2020, I didn't know myself, but I found out it was that week, 50 years ago, that my own father got voted in as a councillor to the Widgie Shire Council. I thought, oh, there you go, 50 years literally to the same week. So, but part of the reason why I got in was the same reason my father got in as well, is because we've made our living out of Gympie. We've lived here. This is what we do, and it was a way of repaying the social rent, if that's the way to put it, the economic rent. We've made our living out of Gympie, and it's a way of repaying that back. That's what his motivation was, and that's what mine was when I got in. Also, Dad and I, we connect people to our future. That's a funny way of saying people get on a bus to go from A to B and they get off a bus, but that's literally what we do. We take kids, I carry 5,000 kids every day to school, they get an education and they get in the future. I take people to the airport to visit their family, take them on holidays, whatever it is. My motivation in life is the same as my dad, to connect people to their future, and I'm happy to have tried to do that in the last 4 years. One of the other motivations has, put it bluntly, is to stop stupid from happening. And I think we've gone a long way to achieving that goal, even though at times it seems like people say we've caused more of it, but that's probably because they're not aware of all the details. And that's what I can thank the staff for. They've really given us a lot of detail, a lot of both sides of the story, so we can make those decisions. I don't do self-promotion. In fact, the biggest complaint of mine is that there's nothing on my Facebook page for the last 4 years. But a lot of other good councillors do that. I don't need to repeat what they put on their Facebook pages. So people would sort of say, well, what have you done? Well, what I've done is what this council has done. Just to echo, as Councillor Jensen said, that it's not what I've done, it's what we as a council have done. What do I stand for? Well, I stand for everything that this council has stood for, even the things that we voted against. Let's say modus operandi has been, I might be against it, but as soon as I walk out that door, that's what the council voted for, that's what I stand for. My main other job in this council, I feel, has been to ask the questions, probably ask the stupid questions at times. I do know that probably the most common comment to me from other councillors when I walk out of a room after a meeting, they go, I'm glad you asked that question. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't want to ask because I thought everybody else understood what was going on, but I didn't. So I'm glad you asked the question. So, and that's what I like to do. Anyhow, and the last bit I won't say because it sounds like electioneering, but anyhow, but it's been good to be here, and if I can continue to pay the social rent a bit longer, that'll be good. If not, I will go out and keep connecting people to their future. That'll be it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Last but not least, giving you time to warm up as the senior form of heritage that we have around the council table. Councillor Freddie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like everyone to acknowledge that I don't have the shackles on me like you all have, so brace yourself for a ride. Firstly, of course, I'd like to convey a big thank you to everyone who's assisted me over the past 2 terms. In my opinion, it's been a privilege to represent and to help the people of the Mary Valley, which is the jewel in the crown of the Gympie region, which is the best region in Queensland. At times it's been a challenging 6 years on council for me, starting with having to work with people who'd been very nasty to me a couple of years earlier. Anyway, we didn't have to worry about that for too long. They got the karma that was coming to them. It's been hard work battling our bureaucrats, even with my past experience in this field. And I lost plenty of times. Like when the Friends of Kandanga won a grant to put disabled toilets and other improvements in the Kandanga Information Centre. We used their grant to demolish their building. I used to think that could only happen in America. I wanted the Mary Street trees pruned. What staff did was prune the 2 best trees down to the ground. Some of the Mary Street traders wanted to ringbark the manager responsible, but fortunately he left soon after. I wanted some minor maintenance work done on Ammermore Hall. What I got was nearly 100 extra steel pipes underneath it. Now it looks like an echidna lying on its back. I wanted the flying foxes thinned out in Commissioner's Gully. And an environmental person told me to think of them as little flying koalas. I realised then the local residents had no hope. And the main roads bureaucrats have been no better. I campaigned for the bad bends in the Mary Valley Road to be fixed. All I got was the speed limit. No doubt they're expecting that the speeding fines they collect from us will eventually pay for the upgrading. And the biggest battle I lost was nothing to do with staff.
I got a COVID injection so I could get around the division without being barred from anywhere. Sure, I didn't get COVID, but instead I got a big dose of shingles. And I've still got the after effects 2 years and 7 months later. People may not realise how much that slowed me down. I can't remember being this forgetful a couple of years ago. Anyway, the good news is as a result of a program of self-medication, I'm gradually getting better. But it's been a tough term. We inherited a train full of coals and a piggy bank full of holes. And then there was the drain where we had to continually feed it using ratepayers' money. Anyway, it's all fixed now and everyone's happy. We then had to take whatever nature gave us, whether it be COVID, then a state skills shortage, and 3 big swims in the river. It's a truly remarkable achievement by everyone here that we came through with such a good report from the Queensland Audit Office this year. Back to the story. To make matters worse, we had 4 CEOs in 4 years and we didn't get a bulk discount. Thank goodness. We now finally seem to have some stability. And being a councillor required learning a new skill I didn't have previously. Ratepayers believe you're responsible for everything, but in reality, you're accountable for nothing. I learnt that accountability is deemed operational and is therefore nothing to do with us. Another skill I learnt was to preface everything with, in my opinion. That protects you from evil spirits. One joy of being a councillor is seeing the delight some people get from taking a pot shot at you. It's an occupational hazard, I know, but what you read on Facebook really does make you worry about the future of mankind. I hear that Tinder is a lot better, but no ratepayers have contacted me yet on that channel. I've also been attacked by certain anonymous, in inverted commas, people who didn't like me. Their weapon of choice has been the state government secret police. I've been attacked 12 times and cleared 13 times. That says more about the complainants than it does about me. A high point was being voted the least unpopular councillor last year, and a low point was being beaten by Councillor Devereux this year. Oh, what a feeling. I can't hide that I've experienced considerable frustration at times in relation to part of our organisation. I felt I've been treated like a mushroom and have responded accordingly. I hope the staff have learnt that mushrooms can be dangerous, especially when we're in a bit of a stew. But overall, I'm satisfied with what I've achieved. I'm departing this time on my own terms, which means a lot to me. It's a triumphal return to retirement after my first attempt in 2017. And it all looks good going into the future. We're going to get our Mary Valley Rail Trail, one way or the other. And Division 8, in my opinion, has 2 really good candidates running. We breed them well out there. I wish they both could win. So my last speech as a councillor comes to an end. Please spare a thought, however, for my lovely, long-suffering wife, Deb, who's had to go on listening to my profound speeches every day. She's the champion. That's it. I'll see you all around. I'll be at table 6 at the Village Green Cafe at Amamore. That's not it, Mr. Mayor. I've got one more thing to do. I've passed the hat around because I've been very concerned that you've been in an accident and you're doing it tough. So I thought the least we could do is help you in your election campaign. So we hired a professional photographer, and we hired a graphic artist, and we went about trying to give you something that'll make up for the setback you've had with your accident. I've just got to go up to the back of the room here. There's a
Put over your head.
Plastic bag.
We've made you.
Is he blacked out of teeth, really?
We'll test them for likeness in front of the camera.
Thank you, everyone.
Good job, Bob.
I wish now I'd gone first.
I thought you would.
Thanks, Bob. To be given the responsibility to lead our community is something quite humbling, and we all have that responsibility as councillors. It's something I didn't take lightly. I'm very grateful for the opportunity over the last 4 years as mayor, but over a longer period as a councillor. Part of my desire in this chamber was to create an environment where questions could be asked, where people could speak freely, and the essential elements of democracy were here on display for all to see in the community, but for councillors to participate in. And I think today is a good example of that. There is a friendly banter. We don't always agree, but there is a friendly banter with one another. And I think a genuine appreciation of what each individual has brought to the table over the last 4 years. But most importantly, and a number of councillors have mentioned it, they've had the opportunity to ask questions. I know for some that creates challenges around standing orders and other bits and pieces of paper. But for me, the most important outcome is that the principles of democracy are here on display and are enacted every time we meet, so that councillors feel that they're in a place where they can ask as many questions as they need, so that they can be comfortable that staff are giving the information that's appropriate and being held to account, and that they can vote accordingly with that comfort and freedom. The environments of the meeting have changed over the last 4 years, and compared to what Councillor Smerdon and Councillor Fredman himself experienced before that. And I think it is a positive change. We do have a little bit of friendly banter that creates an environment and an atmosphere that sets people at ease, including staff, so that we can focus on our most important role, and that's to serve the community. We have had good conversation, sometimes robust, but we have had good conversation that's led to good outcomes. To Robert and the executive and managers and staff, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation. It has been a term of challenges, some of those dictated by nature, some of those as a result of elected representatives trying to bring about a change to move the organisation into a direction that we were far more comfortable. And a lot of work has been done, and my interactions with the executive, irrespective of what happens on Saturday, I am very, very comfortable that we have excellent people in the roles of CEO, in the roles of the executive and our managers and our coordinators. And right across the organisation, the thing that has been impressed upon me on more than many occasions is the level of care that our staff have. You know, people often trumpet the desire to be professional. And in my opinion, that's about 80%. Anyone can get a degree. Anyone can get a qualification. But if you don't care, the job just never gets done as well as it could. And in our organisation, we have a lot of people that genuinely care. And through years and years and years of management that didn't assist them, they have worked to plug holes with fingers and toes and whatever they could to continue to serve their community in the best way they possibly could. And I would like to express my appreciation to them and recognition for the work that they've done in this space for probably the last decade. The Deputy Mayor and Mayor's relationship is an interesting one. I don't believe it should be one of drinking buddies. It should be one of mutual respect and appreciation. I've said it publicly on many occasions, and I'm very comfortable to say it publicly again, that I do not believe there is a finer Deputy Mayor in the state than what we have in Gympie. His support for me, his concern and care is something that I've become very appreciative of. We started our councillor journey as two unknown quantities, a considerable baptism of fire the first 4 years, and in that time I grew to respect and admire his decency and principles. And over the last 4 years, he hasn't wavered in that space. And I'd just like to acknowledge you, Hilary, for all you've done. Today is a day that should have been given to someone many years ago. But because of the viciousness of some individuals, they robbed him of a right that he had earned with many years of unwavering service to the community, not just through council, but through volunteering tirelessly with community organisations and groups. Prior to being a councillor, I'm not even sure if I'd met Bob Fredman, the director. And when the matter of viciousness that arose to remove him from his place of service came up, I didn't make an issue of it to defend Bob. I made an issue of it to defend the principle. I'm just grateful I've got to know him over time, and particularly over the last 4 years, and now I can say that not only was it right to stand on the principle, but it would have also been right to stand behind him as a man. I hope today, Bob, you feel you get the send-off you deserve. You feel that you get the recognition that you worked tirelessly for many years, serving our community, serving this organisation. It wasn't a happy day when you told me you weren't running again. Your input into this room has been invaluable. Your understanding of the history of what the organisation has done and what it has tried in the past has been a great blessing to us, and it will be sorely missed in the coming years. I've always enjoyed your wit and humour, the opportunity to call someone in a time of need to get some advice, an older head. I won't say more attractive, but then again, I'm not looking that good at the moment. it's just a sad loss. It's a sad loss for this chamber. As councillors know that the role of councillor in there impacts on your family in a tremendous way. There's so many events family events that you can't go to because you've got other commitments. There's the worst side of our community that you see with vicious attacks that family members have to read that are untrue. And I would like to thank my family for all that they have supported me through. My 2 kids here, Josh and Maddie, my mum, my sister and her family, and also Talitha's family have been such a wonderful place to come and forget about the challenges of council. But to know that they are there gives me strength. At the pinnacle of all of that is a woman who I get to call my wife, who makes me someone better than I am on my own, who is there at all times, working to support and serve me, and therefore serve the community through me. This last week has impressed upon me how grateful I am and how lucky I am to have someone as wonderful as her standing by my side. And not many understand or appreciate the amount that she does to keep me going and to keep me afloat. So for the last 4 years, my love, thank you. Everyone's aware of my little bit of a trip, side journey in this last week. It has brought home just how lucky we are. We often say it and it rolls off the tongue. There's a bit of a phrase, we live in the best region, but we do. Because we have people that care. And whoever is in this chamber at any point in history, we all should tirelessly work to ensure that we never lose that, because it's the difference that sets us apart, and it's the difference between living in a city and living in a community. And I feel as a group and as an organisation, we have fostered that in our community again. We've wanted to work with people that care about our community to help our community be a better place to live. And for that, I am very grateful. I'm grateful for the new friends that I've met in these different groups over the last 4 years. But I'm just appreciative of what they bring to our town and to our community. So I'd like to finish by again congratulating Bob on all his years of service, on everything that he has done for the region, and congratulating on you as councillors for asking the tough questions, ensuring that democracy's principles are sustained in this chamber, and to our community that we never, ever forget to care. Thank you. Would you like to say anything, Mr. CEO, before we finish?
Thank you, Chair. We're reaching the final days of the cycle, and it'll soon be complete, and a new sort of seed in spring will begin in the next weeks. I've joined this council at the end of your journey, but like every other council before you, you've come and faced, in fact, not like every other council, more than any other council, you face challenges and opportunities, and we express some of those today. Look, into the future, and what we've experienced, at least in my time, we're one team. That's the best That's the best scenario. Everyone in this room, all the ones who are listening and all the ones who are sitting at their desks and working outside, and all of you today. I try to be as aware as I can of the commitment, not having gone through it myself, of the stress of the role, the public scrutiny that you face, the on-call 24-hour scenarios that you face, and the fact that you put your hand up to try and achieve something very noble. I have to choose my words carefully during this caretaker phrase for this period. However, I am safe in extending my respect and admiration for both Councillor Waldock, but especially for Councillor Frederick. 40 years of serving the community, and as a director and as a councillor, he's considered and sharing character. He's big on mentoring and helping people grow. His many contributions at state and local government level, so to Gympie Regional Council will not be forgotten. I think it's a very noteworthy day that we've come to the end of that. We should all be, this should not be forgotten. So no matter your future in the next week, on behalf of the organisation, each of you, and in my case, especially the mayor, you have our and my sincere thanks for the dedication over the term that you have to show up to the meetings, all the committees, all the hours you do, and all the people you have to see all that time. It's a lot of work. And also having the trust in me and the organisation to do what we can to lead and operate the Gympie Regional Council. With your leadership, the organisation has taken steps from what I can see in totally the right direction. And that's of enriching our organisation and our community. I genuinely look forward to the next term of council, whoever's on here, so that we can collaboratively prosper our region and our community in the spirit of service. So thank you all so much for your terms. Much appreciated.
Thank you. With that, councillors, we will now continue on with section 3, confirmation of minutes. We have a recommendation there that the minutes of the Gympie Regional Council meeting held on the 21st of February. Is someone to move? Councillor Smerdon. Someone to second? Councillor Stewart. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We have no petitions before us here today. Item 5.1, Office of the CEO. Amendment to meeting minutes, the 13th December. I'll hand over to Ms. Hatch.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I'm just going to present this report by reading through some of the issues are systemic or systematic. So I'll just bear with me while I read through these notes. So the council report being presented to you about the amendment of the meeting minutes is from minutes of the 13th of December, and they were provided to an independent reviewer as a subject matter expert who's had many years' experience in reviewing minutes and governance matters. The reviewer was requested to include in the minutes what is legislatively required to be captured. Section 254 of the regulations states what's required to be captured in minutes. The purpose of the minutes is to capture the decisions of council collectively. They are not verbatim notes of minutes or discussions. They are minutes, not assessments, and not essays. They are minutes. It is also noted that the standing orders are a guiding document, and while they refer to some legislatively required processes, such as conflicts of interest or meeting conduct, the chairperson is encouraged to maintain order and focus on collegial decision making. The chairperson is to ensure the meeting runs smoothly and decisions are made in a fair and equitable manner and in the public interest. Where councillors were consulted following the review, and there was feedback from Councillor Milne, and the reviewer agreed to clarify the behaviour in one of the issues that Councillor Milne had about why she was asked to leave the meeting on that meeting day, and you will see that there was a change that it had, that Councillor Milne was verbally critiquing the chairperson. That order was because it was against a behavioural standard of the councillor code of conduct, and that was captured in the minutes. The contravention of a behavioural standard is not a breach. It's a behavioural standard of the councillor code of conduct of responsibilities, respect and reputation. The legislation provides that if there is a breach of a contravention of behavioural standard, if there are 3 breaches within 1 year, then it becomes a conduct breach. The minutes of the meeting are to be carried because that behaviour is then recorded on the public register that is required legislatively to be updated. It does not need to be reported to the OIA because it is not a conduct breach, and the council conduct register will be updated and the annual report will be updated. Those were the issues that were raised post the review. Are there any further questions on the review or the updates that have been recommended?
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Milne?
Why was a review conducted?
Because it was requested by Councillor Stewart and yourself, and the matter lay on the table, and from my memory, because Councillor Devereux had said to do a review. So it had been independently reviewed, so we got expert advice on what was provided in the minutes.
Because,
Yes, go.
yeah. Because my one was just about clarifying the behaviour and the conduct I was disciplined for, and I still haven't got clarification on what that conduct is, because you have stated that it was, I critiqued the chair, but the chair is also responsible for conduct within the meeting, and under legislation he can be accountable. So my question is under the legislation, I was actually...
You made a statement in relation to my conduct of the meeting saying I wasn't doing a good job.
Yes.
The first time I let that go through to the keeper, I showed you a bit of grace and a bit of understanding. Didn't beat you around with the standing orders. The second time, I asked you to either apologise or withdraw the statement, and you refused to do it. Had you withdrawn the statement or apologised for the statement, you could have stayed in the meeting. But because you refused to apologise or withdraw, I then had the opportunity or the option to have you removed from the meeting, because that's not how we speak to each other here. We haven't had that type of conduct for this term. We haven't had those type of statements being made against other councillors. Even when things did get a little bit heated, most of the councillors understood that we're not here to throw barbs at people. And that is why you were asked to leave. Pure and simple. Councillor Milne?
When the legislation was updated on the 22nd of November 2023, it also included that the model meeting procedures must include how to deal with suspected inappropriate conduct of the chair. Are these included in our meeting procedures?
Meeting procedures, as I said, the meeting procedures
Excuse me, this is off track.
No.
Councillor Milne, we have tolerated you interjecting for 4 years. Now, the chair has the right to interject, okay? Not you, not any other councillor. And most of the councillors have worked that out over four years, but you haven't yet. And you still continue to do it today. We've tolerated you speaking to the staff during reports. We've tolerated you mumbling stuff to Councillor Fredman or to other councillors. There's been a lot of grace and flexibility shown to you over 4 years. Now, in relation to the recommendation that is there, your questions don't relate to that. Your questions are about whether or not there's opportunity to discipline the chair in terms of breach of procedure. Now, that isn't relevant to this, and it isn't relevant to the matter that was actually occurring on the day. because if you actually went back and looked at what we went through, there was nothing improper that was done. And that has been independently reviewed as well at significant expense to the ratepayer. So it's time to move on. Sometimes you might get it right and sometimes you get it wrong. But we have minutes here. That's the recommendation. Let's move on. Councillor Mill?
Still doesn't answer my question because they are not included in
Because
the
I've said to you
procedures.
that the question
Can I ask?
isn't relevant.
Therefore, under the meeting at the time, I did not have a guideline to go on to raise my concerns in a formal matter that I was concerned about the conduct of the chair on process matters, because we are, I mean, your own words is about ensuring there is a democratic process here. And I'm concerned because I am now getting a conduct breach held against me for something that I don't even know what the conduct is, because it has to be.
You are getting a conduct breach held against you because you said things that were inappropriate, and then, when given the opportunity to withdraw the statement or apologise, you refuse to.
I'm sorry.
That is what the conduct breach is for. Now, that's called decency. Most people don't need guidelines to wade their way through that. Now, if you had concerns, you raised your concerns around the process that we were going through for an extended period of time on that day. You had ample opportunity to discuss that stuff. Now, part of the democratic process requires not a pig-headed desire to actually get the outcome that a particular councillor or individual desires, but an understanding that you can go back and fix things up if there's a mistake. So if there was an issue in the way that I chaired the meeting and that process that day, we can go back and remedy that in the future. But as I've said, that process was examined independently and found to be dealt with appropriately. Now, you may have not believed it was dealt with appropriately, but it was. So your concerns were unfounded. They were unfounded then, they're unfounded now, and just because we didn't have a document to determine how you should respond in that circumstance doesn't mean that that takes any obligation or responsibility away from the individual in terms of how they speak when they're in the chamber to one another. And that is what your breach is for. Not because we didn't have a document, not because we didn't have policy in place, it's because of what you said and your refusal to apologise or withdraw. Did you wish to add something, Mr. Seager?
Look, just to highlight to elected members through the chair, that we tried to take a considered path through this one, but beyond referring to an independent investigator or a reviewer who provided advice on the minutes, we referred it to the department just to make sure does this look right? And they also said they were happy with the advice the reviewer provided, and it was also the OIA also dismissed information that was given to them on this one at the same time. So I think as officers, we've done our best to try and get a look at this as fairly as we can. Councillor Mill, you may not be satisfied, but that's the process we've taken.
Councillor Mill?
So for accuracy on the recording of this breach that's going to be on the register, what part of the code of conduct did I breach?
You breached the standing orders.
We can just confirm, if we could, Chair.
Basically, the breach is for the councillor, including the chairperson of the local government, on 3 occasions within the reporting period, as Ms Hatherell indicated, and it relates to unsuitable meeting conduct to the extent the conduct is not conduct mentioned above, or misconduct or corrupt conduct. So it relates to the meeting behaviours, and it's not at the threshold of inappropriate conduct. That only is reached when there's 3 occasions when this type of behaviour occurs. And then
I would be happy just to let it go. I mean, it was dealt with on the day. The only reason we're having this conversation, the only reason we're speaking about this publicly is because you want to bring it up. I'm happy. I was happy to let it go. It was dealt with on the day it's done. We don't need to go back and rehash it every meeting. Councillor Mill.
Well, under the Local Government Act, unsuitable conduct for a meeting contravenes a behavioural standard, and that's set out in the adopted Code of Conduct. So for me to improve my behaviour, which is being alleged that is continual, I have not been spoken to since that meeting until about now from yourself on my conduct. And that's why I'm asking, under the Code of Conduct, which we only reviewed in November, so we all should know it, what part of that Code of Conduct, because that must be recorded. And this is about me being able to improve my behaviour through understanding of what I've done. And I don't believe I breached the Code of Conduct. I've actually feel I've been upholding it because I'm supposed to respect all the policies and I'm supposed to report any wrongdoing.
And I think that you've actually hit the nail right on the head. If you don't believe you did anything wrong, and people in those circumstances will never make any improvement, because first you must accept some responsibility. And I think it's time to move on. We have a recommendation there. We've had good discussion about this, and I think it's time we continue the meeting on and move on. Is there someone to move? Councillor Devereux, Councillor Smerdon, second. Councillor Devereux to speak.
This is for recommendation 1.
Yes, it's up on there, recommendation 1, yeah.
There's been considerable discussion here. I would like to move on, vote on things that will get things moving forward, so nothing more to add.
Councillor Smerdon.
Happy to second.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Councillor Mill.
I'd just like to remind councillors that we do actually have to have an impartial and sitting at the table, and I believe I've done so during out this term. It's about upholding policies and governance, and even though we don't like to have all this red tape, it actually gives an equal playing field to every decision that we make. There has been speak on upholding the democratic process during this time, and also to ask questions. During that meeting, I did ask questions. They were not resolved. They were points of order raised. I feel I failed during this term by not raising more points of order because I believe that there hasn't been process taken. So when I finally actually start asking points of order, they're not addressed. And then when I raise that I'm not comfortable with the behaviour of the chair, which is covered under legislation, then I'm asked to leave a meeting. And I was not asked to apologise. I was only asked to take a statement back, and that statement back is something that doesn't breach the Code of Conduct. So, in fact, that any recommendations to amend the minutes are not actually accurate and will not be getting my support today. And I do urge other councillors to consider that they may think the matter is over. This is about a councillor's right to ask those questions, to uphold process and governance, because that is our legislative obligation under the Act. It's good governance of and by the local government, and that's what I was doing. It was nothing personal, it was nothing on the subject matter, it was about upholding those processes. So I will not be in favour of the recommendation today.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Stewart.
There's a number of things I want to say. One is partly, you feel Councillor Milne's reputation has been dashed a bit, and maybe it's partly an own goal, but I think it's partly, she is one of the few councillors who actually reads reports before the meeting. And I think you'd probably say a lot of councillors here are derelict in their duty. You're not reading reports before meetings. And see a lot of councillors breaching the rules by being on social media or on their phones throughout meetings. And so I do think there's a certain unfairness. I have said to people before that on the previous 2 terms of one councillor who knows all the rules and legislation and policies best is Councillor Milne, so I'm including myself in that. I know that sometimes takes it too far, that's fine. But then I see so many failings in terms of us not reading reports or whatever. I am in quandary in regards to this because, in terms of the minutes themselves, because in terms of what I asked, there never was an explanation at that meeting about why we were going against the staff recommendation. that those reasons are now being put in the minutes. You can't put something in the minutes that wasn't at the meeting. So it's caught either, wouldn't matter what you did to the minutes, they'd be inaccurate or wrong, so I've got to vote against them. Sorry, it's just life.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Jensen?
Through you, Mr Mayor, my question's for Robert. We have followed process?
Just checking, we've sought advice that we follow process and the
And
advice.
we've sought advice, and I think I do want to. It's not a conduct breach. It's a contravention of a behavioural standard, which is reputation, responsibility, or respect. That's what it is.
So, and sorry if I could ask.
And it has been reviewed, and as you said, Mr. CEO, by the OIA, got dismissed by the independent reviewer, is a subject matter expert, and by the department.
And just to confirm through the chair, in terms of the minutes overall, to Councillor Stewart's question, they were satisfied with the minutes overall.
Yes,
correct.
They developed the minutes.
So we have followed process.
Yes.
It's all about process.
Any other speakers for or against?
Can I ask a question, which is
Councillor.
allowed? Have we sought legal advice on this?
We took 3 layers of the approach through the chair, so through the decision by the OIA or to dismiss, independent legal advice and the department, not independent advice, independent advice, not legal advice, and also through the department. There's always more you can do, but that's what we've done so far.
Any other speakers for or against? I think some councillors don't understand that it's a democracy, and some people just want to be right fighters. And even in the face of evidence from the department that the process was followed correctly, they still can't accept. And in a meeting, part of the role of a councillor is to raise their concerns, but not in an unending fashion where they want to hijack the process and become the chair. The role of the councillor there is to raise their concerns, and they have that opportunity under the standing orders. But once a decision is made, then you must move on with that process and raise any concerns you have after the event. Not continue to bang the drum because you think you're right and you believe you have a better understanding. To have a view that has been independently assessed as being incorrect and being unwilling to waver on that isn't the type of approach that this chamber should have. The process that we went through for that day has been scrutinised by the department, by independent people, and deemed to be appropriate and correct. Nothing more needs to be said. We don't need to spend $20,000 or $30,000 to have that confirmed by a lawyer. We just simply need to adopt the minutes and move on and end the term. I seek councillors' support in this resolution so that we can have this matter laid to rest.
I just want to clarify, so the first recommendation is simply that we amend the minutes. The second recommendation is these are the minutes we're going to accept.
Yes.
So we're just in the first
We're
recommendation.
doing recommendation 1 now,
Yes, Frank.
one at a time. Councillor Devereux to close.
Thank you. I will just say, in closing, I'm probably the councillor at the table this term that's been closest to going through what Councillor Milne has. I was in a position where I've had to take statements back and so forth, been asked to apologise. I swallowed it. I didn't agree with it. We've butted heads sometimes, but that's the process. The chair runs the meeting. So I'm glad this is being sorted out. I'm not particularly thrilled about the time that's had to go into it, but I just want to get it sorted now so we can crack on. So, thank you.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Polly, Councillor Waldock, Councillor Smurden, Councillor Hartwig, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Devereux, Councillor Fredman. Against? Councillor Milne. The recommendation 1 is successful. Thank you. We'll move on to recommendation 2. Councillor Devereux to move, someone to second. Councillor Smurden, Councillor Devereux to speak.
I don't think there's much more to say on this.
Councillor Smurden.
I think it's been discussed fully. It's time to move on. Thank you.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Councillor Milne.
Oh,
Councillor Stewart.
The issue I got is that attachment 3 doesn't actually, it's only part of the minutes, part of the proposed minutes. It's not complete minutes.
For complete minutes, there should have been the attachment, and then the attachment 3 was the complete minutes with the insertion in it.
I went through it and it was only part of the minutes.
Unless that was the issue with the council, but there's attachment 3. And it was the whole minutes with the updates plus that bit extra that the independent review put in, which is verbally critique. And I checked it on the info council. Is it in there? There. Yeah, so it's the third attachment that you're something.
150-page report on it.
Unless it's covered off.
I think it's covered off somewhere.
Okay.
So they are
Yeah.
incomplete, I'm sorry, so it's a bit hard to approve something that's incomplete or disagree with something that's incomplete.
Minutes are exactly the same as that was presented at the previous meeting, except for that one little bit that was in attachment 2, and then also included was verbally critique. I don't know why that hasn't been printed up. Could be because of the size of it, but it is attachment 3, and we can hand that back out and put it up on the website.
Mr. Lewis, are you able to confirm that it's not on the register?
So it's got the first 19 of 313 pages, so that's it. So that's,
It hasn't printed at all. And that might be a technical issue because of the size.
don't know why it wasn't copied before we went to the.
I've seen it. We can provide copies, get someone to print them all up and pass them around.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Mill.
Against. By adopting the recommendations, and even though we can't actually see the final copy of the minutes because it appears that the attachment 2 doesn't align because it doesn't include the reason being critiquing the chair as my conduct breach. Legislation does say that a unsuitable meeting conduct has to contravene and be single-handed of the adopted code of conduct, councillor code of conduct. And this was never stated, this was never told to me. There was no, I do not believe I breached that code of conduct to warrant, because it has to, the chair has to reasonably believe that unsuitable meeting conduct has occurred, and then also consider the severity. And to raise a concern, I raised 2 points of order and process, and we're not talking the subject matter here, we're talking process. This is not the outcome of the item that day, it was about the process being used. And I've had concerns for some time, and I raised that because I think that is my job, well, not I think, that is my duty as a councillor. And so I raise it, instead of them being addressed, which is written here as in it was addressed, they were never addressed. And to raise a concern on the conduct of the chair, which is under legislation captured, that I did not have a process to go by, because everyone knows I am by process. That's the way my ASD mind works. I did not understand how to approach that properly. So I did make a statement. And I was only asked to withdraw the statement. And I refused to withdraw the statement because the statement was accurate, because they were not upholding the standing orders on the process. And there are processes we can use as councillors that are within the guidelines and legislation and procedures and policies. If we know them, we can use them and we can actually get the outcomes that we need for our community, but done in the right democratic way. There's also additions in here that I cannot actually confirm or deny, but I can say that they were never, and this is the actual 254 part of reasonings for a decision to be made, because I was not in the room when the final decision was made, but I do not recall any references to these particulars. So it's almost like we're retrofitting an outcome to a set of minutes, which are a legal document. I have raised directly, and that's where the review come from, that there has been issues with minutes. I went through the last 12 months and I found numerous issues with our minutes. So this is why I'm standing strong here now. It's because if anything, I can leave a legacy of being accurate and transparent and actually knowing that our council is operating in the public interest and by the legislation that we're sitting here and are bound by. So I cannot support these amendments, and I do urge other councillors to reflect on their obligations under the Act and then possible ramifications of supporting something that isn't accurate. And I'd just like to say at the ending, this was never about an outcome. It was about trying to get an understanding on my alleged behaviour so I could actually improve my conduct as a councillor. It was not about making a point. Thank you.
Yeah, that speaks for or against. I'll speak for the recommendation. Councillor, if you were genuinely interested in improving your behaviour, there's been plenty of opportunity to come and speak to me personally about that, and I would have given you some detail and some understanding. Addressing your concerns and addressing concerns that are raised by councillors around process in the chamber doesn't mean you get what you want. It doesn't mean that we do the thing that you want the room to do. Having your concerns addressed means raising your concern and letting the chair address it. And on that day, I addressed your concerns for a considerable period of time. And the repetitious nature of your raising of those concerns over and over and over again made it very clear to me that you weren't interested in the outcome of a process to respect the role of chair. You were simply interested in having the room do what you want. And that's not the purpose of having the opportunity to raise your concerns. You made a statement that was incorrect on the day in relation to how I was doing my job. It has been shown by independent review that the process that the chair adopted on the day was correct and appropriate. And you still will not accept that you may have said something that was inappropriate or incorrect. This isn't about whether the process was right and wrong. This is simply about a right fight. And let's move on. The process that we went through on the day was sound and correct. It's been adjudicated by external individuals to be sound and correct. You made a statement that was wrong on the day, but understandable. You weren't willing to withdraw it. You're still not willing to withdraw it. And here we're spending a good half an hour or more on minutes simply because you're not willing to evaluate your conduct and accept independent evaluation of what occurred. I would implore councillors to adopt the recommendation so that we can move on with the rest of the meeting. Yes, Mr. CEO.
So, just following up on, through yourself, Chair, through Councillor Stewart's comment, it is true that there's the amendment section is only in your document in front of you at attachment 2. One way through this, Mr. Lewis has suggested, is that the motion that you're currently, the words for the motion you got could be amended so that we could just adopt this in lieu of the, as the change section. Mr. Lewis, did you have a suggestion on how that could be changed?
Incorporating the added attachment to.
The mover and seconder.
Attachment
that?
So attachment 2 is what the reviewer said in the first instance. Then it went back after Councillor Milne's question, and it came back in and inserted as well verbally critique. So that's included in the final minutes because we were listening to council, like the reviewer was listening to Councillor Milne's concerns, and that was what was prepared to be put in there.
So we don't have a,
We can get I would request that we get a copy of the whole minutes, I don't know, and provide it to the councillors to show them.
There's two parts then. Either we would have to hold this item, wouldn't we?
So we can, could we get it printed up and I can go on with this next?
So the suggestion is we hold the item, we print
Print them up.
copies of the minutes for all councillors, and then come back to that item at a later time in the meeting.
We have a recommendation there that's been moved and seconded. Are the mover and the seconder happy just to leave this sit for the time being until we get?
Yeah.
Both happy with that? Councillors happy with that? Yeah.
of course, it's only 19 pages we're approving out of 300.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with our consensus, let's move forward to the next item on the agenda. We'll just leave that one sit there until we get that printed out and councillors can have a read. Item 6.1, the action report, quarter 2.
Through you, Mr Mayor, this meeting action report is for quarter 2 of 2023-24. 59 items in the financial year. There are outstanding items which are included in the attachment. Any personal affairs information has been redacted. I now pass that to the group council to ask any questions of respective directors.
Any questions, councillors? There's Councillor Milne.
I'm just trying to understand actions. It's outstanding actions for council for the quarter 2, so from October to December. So it's just outstanding items that haven't been actioned from that. It's just, my queries is we've got a couple of items that were laid on the table, which is code of conduct and acceptable request guidelines, but I do believe they're coming back later. So is that supposed to be?
Outstanding items are, my understanding is the outstanding items are in the table that are attached to the report.
Yeah, I'm just clarifying because these were in the last 3, although that quarter.
Yeah,
I'm just clarifying that these don't need to be in the table or reported on. I'm just trying to clarify what should be in there. And if it's outstanding, I'm guessing that the Freshwater Creek has been resolved, which is a lot. We must have rescinded the trusteeship. Land holdings for Ganella and Gameri must be sold because they're not in there. And then the fluoro petition from December is the one I'm most interested in because our standing orders do say within 2 months of receiving the petition on the 28th of November. We're supposed to receive a copy of the response given to the petitioners, and I don't believe I've received that. So that's just something that I haven't seen on the table. I was just wondering.
Yeah. So through you, Mr Mayor, I'd ask those questions of those respective directors.
My question was more, do these items need to be in this report?
Will they? If they have been completely finalised, then they can be taken out of the report. But as of the date when this report was done, they were included in the report.
Councillor Stewart.
Mr Mayor, I think perhaps another way of putting it is sometimes as a council we make decisions and the Freshwater Creek is one that's dear to me because the ex-ranger lives just up the road from me, he talks to me about it all the time. And so we say, yes, we will return Freshwater Creek or we'll give Freshwater Creek back to national parks. And then we don't hear back about whether it's happened or not. And so it's just like a vacuum. And so it'd be nice sometimes, especially some of those special items that are rare, if we get feedback on that it's actually occurred, as well as getting feedback on what's still to occur.
Yeah, I see your point. Just to sort of tie it off.
Yeah, so has Freshwater Creek been returned to National Park? So I have to assume they have, but who knows? I mean,
So, notwithstanding the actual issue itself, I do think that's a fair request that you should know when things have been completed. So we can look at how that happens if that hasn't happened already.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Councillor Mills?
So I'd just like to clarify, that was my assumptions that it had been finalised, and that's why it's not in the report. That's my questions are, is that it has been done, so I'm just assuming that they have been done because it's not in the report.
We will bring a table back of all recommendations with the action items that we've completed, and we'll also have a table of outstanding action items as well.
obviously not concerned about those regular things like receiving financial reports or whatever, it's just those more substantial.
Yes.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there. Is there someone to move? Councillor Milne, someone to second?
Oh, second.
Councillor Stewart, Councillor Milne to speak?
Yeah, I'm just noting that there are actions written, outlined in the report, and yeah, I appreciate having the update.
Councillor Stewart?
I'd like to thank staff for all the good work they've done in completing all the things we've asked them to do, and some things take longer than others, and that's fine, and hopefully you'll have some tweaks to the reporting. That'd be good. Thank you.
Two speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Milne to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, this new update report that has come in this term on actions and meetings is actually a good transparent way of following up what has happened within council, and a good medium for the general public to know, plus us as councillors. So I do appreciate that the report has been compiled, and it will be good to have these improvements moving forward. So thank you.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Motion is successful. Item 6.2, February 24 Finance Report.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr
hand
Mayor.
over to Mr Lewis and Ms Hatherall.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll hand over to present the updated February report for 2024.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. I just want to make a quick note in relation to the report before I get into it, that there is an error in one of the amounts. The net operating result is actually $28.7 million for the budget year to date, and I incorrectly transposed 45.2 from the line. So I apologise profusely about that, councillors. In relation to the report that we have, it's for the end of February 2024. We're tracking in line with where we would expect to be with our operational results. The material variant...
I'm sorry, which figure was wrong?
So the third paragraph, it's the third paragraph
Yep, so,
in the report. So that last amount before the full stop should be 28.7, not 45.2.
Thank you.
No problem. Our material variance explanations are provided in the report. The capital program actual expenditure to the end of February is 66.9 million, of which 13.2 is the voluntary buyback scheme, which is currently progressing quite nicely. The finance officers are still working with the assets team to ensure the phasing of these capital programs. As you can imagine, they're not nice equal instalments during the financial year, so the forecasting for those capital projects is an ongoing piece of work that happens on a month-to-month basis. Our cash position's higher than the previous year, and there are some explanations in relation to that, but principally the rates have been issued and ratepayers are paying their rates. We've also been receiving quite substantial payments from the Queensland Reconstruction Authority as part of our flood recovery works.
I might just interject there too, Deb. It's pleasing to note in relation to cash that our unconstrained cash now is now $29.1 million at the end of February, which is very close to the benchmark of 3 times our operating expenditure. and our figure is around 33 million. If we recall back in the January financial report, that figure was significantly low. Our finance officers have been analysing our capital expenditure, our constrained cash, and our unconstrained cash, and rework the numbers. So it's pleasing to see that we're back, and we would expect that the target will be exceeded in the next financial report.
Just in relation to the unconstrained cash, that amount does change, and during the financial year, it tends to be high when we receive 30% prepayment projects in particular. Once we spend that 30%, we start unconstraining those amounts of cash. So in February, we were able to unconstrain a substantial amount of that grant funding because we had actually started claiming over and above the initial 30%. We will continue to monitor those subsidies and grants as we go through this financial year, and we'll also be working closely with the assets team to ensure that the infrastructure charges are recognised in the appropriate period and those funds are unconstrained as they need to be as well. If there's any questions?
Any questions, councillors? There's no questions. We have a recommendation there. Is there someone to move? Councillor Smerdon, someone to second. Councillor Stewart, Councillor Smerdon to speak.
Really? Okay.
Well, move your hand. If you're at the sale, don't need to tell you a steer with that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's good to see that we are progressing and staying in the black. Another well-compiled report, so I'm happy to move.
Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, things are going on quite satisfactorily. Like always, like I always say, you've got to manage our expectations and remember that it's easier to spend money than earn it. And, so while financially we're adequate, we've got to be careful.
Two speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Smerdon to close.
Happy to move.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.3, procurement report for February 24. I'll hand over to Mr. Lewis and Ms. Hatherall again.
Mr. Mayor and councillors, this procurement report is provided to seek your approval to enter into a contract with CEDO Group for the delivery of Phase 2 of Council's Strategic Procurement Review. This stage is for the implementation of the recommendations identified by CEDO Group as part of Phase 1 of this review. The arrangement is recommended in accordance with Section 235B of the Local Government Regulation due to the specialised nature of these services.
So just to add on to Mr. Hatherall's comments, normally this procurement would be handled within delegations of either the director or the CEO those financial limits. It's coming back to council because of we're seeking an exemption under Section 235 of the regulation, in that council believes there's only one supplier that can reasonably undertake the works, and that's because CEDO have undertaken the initial assessment and they are best placed to proceed to oversee the implementation of the review. And we're trying to move council's procurement practices into the space of best practice.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Devereux.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, when we did Phase 1, was there an indication of how much the overall project was going to cost? Because I just couldn't recall.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, there were some indicative numbers. At that stage, we chose to ask for Phase 1 to be the first phase, and then it was going to be a decision to come back to ELT and council for Phase 2.
Okay, so do we know, can you remember what the figures indicated were?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it's consistent, very similar to the amount that's been provided as part of this.
Wonderful. And Phase 3, the evaluation, is that something else we'll have to be looking for as well with the same company?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's part of this phase.
That's part of this one? Fabulous. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I do have one more, if that's okay. The Internal Champions Group, could you just explain for the readers at home what that is?
So through Mr Mayor, basically what that is we're seeking procurement champions within each section of the business. So those people will be trained up on our legislative and policies and procedures around procurement, and they'll be a reference point. So rather than us we want to move to a centre-led model. So Graham and Alex will have procurement people that are experts in procurement embedded within their businesses. They can go to rather than going to a central group that does all that processing. So a much more efficient model, but that also ensures that we maintain consistency against our policies, procedures and legislative obligations.
Okay, so does that mean, as far as the legislative and all the other, that more time training and keeping up with the training side of things,
yes,
like hours for the organisation?
Through Mr Mayor, yes.
Okay, and when someone's away on holidays or even leaves, will there be someone also trained up?
So through Mr Mayor, so that network will be a network across council, so they can go to any one of those people to seek advice and support.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the procurement training, there's refresher training being rolled out for managers, coordinators and other staff involved in procurement. I believe that's at the start of April through April as part of the preparation for the changes with the Tech One product that comes in. So, and once we start confirm that training, we get that delivered, there'll be actual user training as well for the system. So we figured that this is the perfect opportunity to roll that refresher training out.
That's good. And then that kind of rolls into my final question, you'll be pleased to know, is the dashboard, the live dashboard, will that be compatible with the Tech One that we're dealing with? That's all on there, so that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there. Is there someone to move? Councillor Devro, someone to second? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Devro to speak.
As I asked the most questions, I thought perhaps I should be the person moving this. Look, anything we can do to improve the internal processes within the organisation is well worth the money, even if it is a lot of money. So if this gives us a better result in the end, then I am in favour. So thank you.
Councillor Stewart.
Mr Mayor, first I note that Councillor Polly realised I'm the only person who put up my hand, because no one else will.
It's encouraging you.
Procurement's one of those backroom things which I guess the public don't really realise, but it's so important because it helps, if we procure things right, it's cheaper or better quality or such like. So this will improve our procurement practices and also train up our staff in better procurement practices. So I'm happy to second.
Two speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Devro to close.
Nothing more to add.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.4, the procurement for the LDCC project.
For this report, I may need to call upon my learned colleague, Mr O'Byrne, to support some of the more technical natures of the procurement. But this report seeks endorsement for council to proceed and award a contract for the retrofit of the local disaster coordination centre and seeking that we award that contract to Carfax Commercial for a sum of $641,000 inclusive GST. The funds are contained within the existing capital works budget, and we're looking to reallocate some funds from Melbourne Street up to the disaster centre. Time is of the essence with this project. We have to get works underway so that we can claim a substantial subsidy, and the works need to be substantially complete by the 30th of June.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Warder?
So we're talking about over $600,000 here, and you said there may be a bit of a subsidy there. Do you know what type of figure we're looking at?
I think, off memory, the subsidy is about $500,000.
Good. Now, the only reason why I say that is it's a local disaster coordination centre, which is not just council, we've got state, we've got all sorts, so why should the rate be here? Okay.
This, the subsidy came about when the former CEO was here and they were working closely with the district disaster operations centre officer, and they're looking to have a more robust, functional centre, and that's where the subsidy came about from. It was originally envisaged that we would move to Mellor Street. Subsequently, it was found that during the 2022 flood event that the centre in the old bank building, with its connectivity to the relevant agencies, had a lot better functionality, and that's the decisions made to reallocate the funds between the two centres. And as noted, the majority of the works are funded by grants or subsidies.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the subsidy is $500,000, and we have asked for an extension to the end of June for actually delivering the works around that subsidy, and that's why there's such a priority in trying to get this contract in place so that the works can be delivered and we can receive that.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Polly?
But I suppose then the good question would be, have you gone back to either supplier, since there's only two, and goes, can you do this straight away if they get in? Because I've seen this before where we've given them a contract and they went, oopsie, yeah, things have fallen over, so will Carfax, they will get it done by June? I don't know if I'm allowed to ask that question, because you're going to award it to them and we don't have a chance to come back and go, oh, we better give it to the next guy.
Mr Mayor, Councillor, I can't 100% guarantee that at this stage the contractor has, from a program point of view, and this commission indicated they can actually do it within that time frame.
Yeah.
So I can give you as much a guarantee as that. But we'll come back to regular updates through that monthly CapEx update workshop, so you'll be actually totally up to speed.
You have some questions, Councillor?
Through the chair, can you recall I've asked numerous times if the grant is going to cover, or the subsidy is going to cover the full amount, and I was assured numerous times that it was. What's happened?
So, through Mr Chair, Councillor, the last discussion we actually had, we did indicate that the budget was in excess of the grant, and then we're actually looking to seek further opportunities for grant funding.
Or to have a look at it and see.
Or to change the scope and then accommodate that within the existing capital budget. So that's what we're attempting to do. At this stage, the main issues we're faced with from a cost point of view, the heritage-related aspects of the building. That's what we're actually working on with the contractor. But at this stage, we'll still be working in the overall CapEx program, whilst we program quantum as far as dollars are concerned, whilst we seek additional funding opportunities.
Does this, as things stand, still include the glass wall?
I'll defer to Mr. Lewis, who's actually managing the.
I believe the
deliveries aspect
stage.
Because that was just looking at that would be very expensive part of the project. So
I guess from a practical point of view, the room at the old bank building doesn't work as a disaster centre as it stands at the moment. So we need that separation so that we can have independent rooms running in conjunction with each other. So there might be an LDMG meeting being chaired by the Mayor at one session, and the other room there'll be police, ambulances, whatever, operating in the back of the house. So you need that soundproofing between the two rooms, and I guess the glass partitioning. I must have a question that myself, but it's in line with the heritage values of the building.
but there's still a breakout room too, though, isn't there?
There will be a breakout room.
That's right.
Which is towards the northern end of the building.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Ward?
It's basically been answered. What my question was going to be was just to confirm that the building is heritage listed. And when we're looking at this sum, $641,000, you could almost build a palace for that. But when we're talking about heritage, it's quite tedious with how the project rolls out, right? We're not just knocking down walls and stuff. So that basically all I'm saying is it makes sense. When you go onto Mellor Street, you can pretty much knock down what you want, and it'll be substantially less. I think that's where the difference is, where we're going for something that's going to be, or the longevity or the way it works is going to be a lot more beneficial.
That's true.
It doesn't really sound like a question, but
I guess it's true. If we didn't have if it wasn't a heritage building, we would have taken out walls and taken out pillars and reconfigured the building. We can't do that because of town by constraints of our heritage listing.
yep. And with an old bank building, all the best with trying to knock down walls.
They ain't moving, those walls.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there. Is there someone to move? Councillor Polly, someone to second. Councillor Waldock, Councillor Polly to speak.
Thank you for the report. Thank you for doing your due diligence. Let's just hope that it gets done while the funding is still there. Budget. So happy to move this recommendation.
Councillor Waldock.
Not so, just happy to second.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Devereux.
I am disappointed that it's gone over the budget and that, we were going to look at how to try and get it back under and it hasn't happened. Regardless of the reasons, I think the wall was a waste of money, particularly if we want to get to bring it in under the budget. I was up there on occasion during the flood event and it didn't seem to be that big a problem. I admit I wasn't there for all the meetings, but I did see one. I'm also disappointed that we needed an extension again. We seem to always be needing extensions, and I just would love to see some stuff come in without it occasionally. I'm sure it does, but yeah. So for that reason, I'm going to stamp my foot.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Polly to close.
Nothing further to add. Thanks.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Polly, Councillor Waldock, Councillor Smerdon, Councillor Hartwig, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Fredman, Councillor Milne. Against? Councillor Devereux. The motion is successful. Thank you. Item 7.1, Community Sustainability Directorate Report. I'll hand over to our new director, Ms Stengel. First meeting in the chair, last meeting in the term. How did you escape that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think maybe it's just it's fate. Fate will have it as that's the case. Good morning, councillors. Yeah, as you see, report 7.1. It's our directorate report. I'm assuming that you've had a chance to read the report. It's been a busy, I guess, a busy quarter for us. There's some really good highlights in there. Some increased visitation to the gallery. There's lots of projects coming through in a number of areas. Yeah, I guess pretty much that. I think the report's the report. Have you got any questions?
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, I did have sent this question through to you earlier. So the report mentions quite a bit of short staffing in the planning area, somewhat in whether in the planning scheme, but more so in the planning assessments. So is that holding up any planning approvals, or how are staff coping with that?
Through the chair, thank you for raising that to it. Absolutely, is a concern to us that we don't have a full complement of staff. However, we are relying on agency and consultants in that space, and we have been working with our people and culture team to look at ways that we can make the roles more attractive to get more staff in. Planning is always one of those areas that I guess it goes in cycles, and at the moment we're in a bit of a cycle of not being able to attract some staff, although I believe some recent recruitment there was some really good favourable response from applicants. But to your question, is it holding up applications? No, I don't believe so, but it is a challenge for us as we work through those, a heavy workload with planning scheme and the like, and we are addressing it.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Milne.
I just noted that the regulatory services section, that was the Gympie Rough Sleep Response Group. That's the first time I've actually heard of this initiative. It's obviously it's Police Council and other agencies, and I'm just interested in hearing more about that program itself, whether moving forward. I just thought it was quite a good initiative.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Milne. I'll just invite Dan Rogers, our Manager of Regulatory Services, to.
Thank you. Councillors. Deb is a new group, and two of our staff attended that first meeting last month, and it's going to be an ongoing response for our community. It's currently being held in other regions as well, and our liaisons with those other areas.
Councillor Mill?
Yeah, can I, what's council's involvement and within that group? What's our role?
They yet to set some guidelines on how we're actually operating for that. So the first meeting's been had only, and I believe we're actually going to hold the next meeting.
No, it's just interesting. It's a good initiative. That's all. I'm just interested, even future on, to get some more information on that.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Deborah.
Thank you. Through the chair, we got some negative headlines not so long ago in regards to illegal dumping, and I did send in a request there for some information or for it to be looked at. Is there anything we can add to that at the moment?
Okay, through yourself, Chair.
As in council is illegally dumping?
No.
Which is just as well. Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if we have a response now. Now, what we might do is prepare something so that we've got better information. I think some information was sent out, but if it hasn't, we'll make sure we present that to members in email very soon.
Through the chair, absolutely, we'll do that.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Mill?
I do see that finally there is a new regulated parking trial that's going to happen at Rainbow Beach, and it's been spoken about for some time, and you're working with the roads design team. Is there any indication of when that actual trial will begin?
No, I haven't got a date at this stage.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there before us. Is there someone to move? Councillor Stewart, someone to second. Councillor Mill, Councillor Stewart to speak.
Really good report. I just note some things, creative recovery, the arts and cultural thing, and it's really bringing arts and culture into the disaster recovery space, and it's good to see our staff organising a program where they mentor, where artists are mentored to help in disaster recovery. Because it's not just about putting buildings back together, it's also about putting people's lives back together and reinvigorating them. There was something else, just more of a question. Weed management. I got a bit hammered the other night at the mountain about people complaining about weeds and the council doing nothing about it. I don't think people realise, one, that we have a very good weed management team going out seeking to manage weeds and pests in our region. Also, I don't think realise how big our region is, and two, how many different sorts of weeds there are. And we wish there were simple solutions. There isn't. We could spend all our rate money plus more on weed management and still be behind the 8 ball. So, big thank you to our weed management team. I do have concerns though that they're going a bit overboard, and with the roadside furniture is mentioned, and yet you get along East Deep Creek Road in Monkland, it's probably mowed better by Nolans, and a lot of the pathway footpaths are in Gympie, and yet the guys still go along and spray around the furniture and create empty space for weeds to grow when it was full mown grass anyway. So I know it's something I've raised in the past, and I know it's something that staff are working on, is how to better, we need to make our roadside furniture, guideposts, whatever, visible. It's how to do that well, but yeah, that's about it. It's it's a great variety of things that the team does, and it's good to know that our planning section is getting on with doing the approvals and such like. Thank you.
Councillor Mill.
I always love this report because it is the community-facing directorate. That's why it's so busy, and there's a lot of things in there that will be of interest to the community, and it is a good time to reflect achievements and learning and that information shared, because it's not just for us councillors. I believe that the whole organisation can actually read this report and understand how big it is and all the awesome things that you guys are doing, and some of the challenges that are in there as well. There was 2 items that I did note that were dear to my heart, which was the Crab Creek erosion control. I had been identifying this even before I was a councillor. It has been an issue, and it just shows how long it takes to get actually something to be rectified, because it's been many, many years, and I'm really happy to see that design going through. And the Wild Dog Forum down at Tin Can Bay was well received, and actually is very pertinent, because I was sitting in the IGA car park to have a almost Gari experience where a dingo walked straight past my window, ignored me, so its behaviour was non-concerning, but it was in the heart and middle of the evening. So it was something we're going to have to learn to live with, and those education programs are really, really important moving forward. So yeah, I thank you, and I'd like to note everything else. It's always a joy to read.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Devereux.
I'd just like to note, I won't mention names, but I believe the library is losing or has lost a long-standing staff member who does a fantastic job, has done a fantastic job, moving to another state. Really disappointed to see that person go, because they've been a real asset to the library services. So.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Smerd.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I noted Councillor Stewart's comments about our biosecurity department. I think in a lot of ways we can probably spend our money better in that department. If I do get returned, I will certainly be pushing for some changes in that department. Also, the mention of the wild dogs by Councillor Milne, I think that also needs re-examination and some other control measures put in place. That's my opinion anyway, and that's what I'll be looking for.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Stewart to close.
Nothing further to add, thanks.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 7.2, the RSPC Bound Management Contract. We have a report before us, councillors.
Thank you, councillors. So this was one of the reports we brought to the councillor workshop. So this is the report for resolution. It's about the extension of the RSPCA contract at our animal welfare facility. The report, I'm taking that you've read it. If you've got any further questions, I'll up to the point.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Colley.
What is the metric CPI? Because there are lots of CPIs.
I'll have to take that on notice. Thank you.
Is it just,
yeah.
well, would you know what it was previously? Is it just standard 3%, 5%? Because I know, like, last year the wages CPI was less than 5%, but the Brisbane CPI was 7%. It's all over the place. In which one
So through the chair, I'll have to confirm on this one. Absolutely, CPI isn't always CPI. It depends on, it's very different, for example, in our waste space compared to, say, something here. I will need to confirm it. I don't want to give you an incorrect figure, but I believe it was fairly standard. That was my understanding, around that 3% mark, but I will absolutely come back. Yeah.
Generally, they're just fixing the contract, and it's just a set amount. It's not a variable up and down year to year.
Through Chair, Mr Mayor, the actual figure is a formula in this contract. It is a standard formula. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it was something similar to the last 2 quarters, multiplied and divided by coming up with the CPI figure.
Right. So it is variable.
It is a variable.
Potential. Right, okay. Sorry, one final question for the chair. I'm just assuming that there's not really an alternative. I mean, RSPCA are doing a good job, but if you went to the open market, would you end up with 3 alternatives realistically?
So through the chair, in 2019 we did go to market, and there was only 1 tenderer for it. I've asked the question prior to this process, and there is still no alternative apart from council doing it ourselves, and a risk assessment on that has come back, quite considerably in favour of proceeding with the RSPCA, and a big part of that is the public side of euthanasia and the ability to continue that relationship with the RSPCA, being able to tap into their adoption scheme.
Okay.
Any other questions, councillors? Have a recommendation there before us. Is there someone to move? Councillor Smerdon, someone to second. Councillor Colley. Councillor Smerdon to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As far as I can see, the RSPCA are doing a great job. keeping stray dogs and stray cats, especially the stray cats. My opinion on cats is well known, and the damage they do to the environment. So I'm happy to move.
Councillor Polly.
I can only echo Councillor Smurden's words. They're doing a good job and happy to see them carry on for another term.
Two speakers for the recommendation, any speaker against, any other speaker for. Councillor Smurden to close.
Happy to move.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
James Bruce, too slow.
Normally you say anyone else but...
Can't look up.
We have a later agenda item. Item 7.3.
Our Manager of Planning, Ms Stenholm, to come to the front as well for any questions. This is a 7.3 was a late report. This was previously subjected to some council meetings, and the last council meeting it was moved and resolved that we would lay the matter on the table and come back to council with an amended report for approval with some conditions. That report has been prepared for your consideration and endorsement. There's been some, several factors in there that we have carefully considered as staff. Some of those conditions, I guess, as a council, you can resolve to amend them or remove them. Some of those conditions are, as we see fit, that obviously from our perspective, from a staff perspective, we believe should be retained, but absolutely up to council's discretion in that case. I've been to the site myself. I went there on Friday and had a look around, so I'm familiar with the site now. I've also consulted internally with our team, and including our Manager of Infrastructure, Mr Liam Watson, around some of those technical aspects on the road reserve. So it's not without that consultation that this report's been prepared. Anyway, for your consideration and discussion, I'll hand it over to yourselves.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Devereux was first, and then Councillor Smurden.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, to start off, I think there was some confusion last time over what can and can't be done, and the idea of bringing it to council, and the fact that we can change things once it comes here, but it has to come to council with a certain legislative backing, or it's based on that. So thank you for this. I do appreciate the work that's gone into it. I do have a question. Are we looking at this being a temporary thing like we were discussing, or is this to push it through and it gets done?
Through the chair, the recommendation that's been provided to you doesn't have a sunset clause.
That's what I thought.
So it's an open-ended approval in perpetuity.
Thank you.
Can I start Councillor Smurden?
Correct me if I'm wrong for one last time, Councillor Fredman. Is this Carlton Road not the old Bruce Highway?
Yeah,
correct.
I find it hard to believe why we've got to have a road upgrade when we've got an old Bruce Highway that's been well built. It's been there for how many years, Councillor Fredman?
Numerous.
Is that really needed?
So through the chair, in response to that, Councillor Smurden, I did consult with our Manager of Engineering, and it's a standard condition around not so much the actual quality of the road pavement, but its width and the potential, the risk for council as an organisation is that we need to have some certainty about people swinging into that driveway and making sure that we don't cause a traffic conflict. So the recommendation in the report reflects that upgrade around the driveway access for that purpose. Again, I will, the council has its right to excise the removal of that condition or amendment of that condition if you see fit.
Can I just, Councillor Fredman, you've had some experience in this space. Do you feel that condition is warranted?
I'm not, put it this way, I'm not sure we fully ever did understand the application. From what I could see when I went out on site, the movements are to Pantex. The containers are already there. Pantex are not a semi-trailer, they're a small machine. I must say that I've been out and looked again, and it appears to me that it's still two Pantex, and I don't know whether the movement of two Pantec trucks would warrant any concerns about the road. That's my Pantec's just a rigid chassis truck with
10 metres.
alloy sides.
Size of the bus.
If I may,
Smaller.
Yes.
The application proposes that the shipping containers do get moved. They get taken to someone's property, filled up and then brought back to the site. Whilst there's no customer visits to the site, the trucks do transport the shipping containers. I don't think they're there necessarily permanently.
Okay.
And I think the application proposed about 3 to 4 truck movements a day. And Carlson Road is a single lane rural road, so I guess the engineering advice is based on potential conflict with local traffic and those trucks. The upgrading is only recommended from the access back to the old Bruce Highway.
And what distance is that?
Depends which way you go, Mayor. It's either 200 metres go one way or it's 2 kilometres if you go the other way. I presume they mean the 200 metre way.
Basically. And what's the likely expense associated with?
What
I mean,
grade?
we could effectively kill the application by having conditions that are too onerous.
Guttering.
Councillor Fred?
Mr Mayor, on the basis of that information, I'm a bit surprised that they're moving containers in and out. It's the most inefficient way of ever moving furniture I've heard. I think if just to get it moving, I'm wondering whether or not, if the information about how it's going to work is incorrect, then if we approve it, they can appeal the conditions. Is that right?
That's right.
So
Not appeal, they can negotiate the conditions.
Negotiate the conditions. If it's not containers on semi-trailers coming in and out, and that does surprise me, but I take your point, then perhaps there's room for negotiation. Is that correct? Correct.
Yeah. I think it sounds like a good alternative.
Of course, we need to look at the road. It's a crescent road. So that's why it's 2Ks, the old highway one way and 200 metres the other way. I've been along it twice this year delivering leaflets, and you go along the whole 2Ks going in and out of letterboxes and not see another car. It's that quiet. It's not like, you talk about traffic conflicts. What traffic conflicts? It's a nonsense in that sense. Yeah, it is an old highway, but it is single lane, well, a wide single lane, probably 4 or 5 metre wide maybe. And it is about 200 metres to the closest old highway entrance. So, yeah, in that sense, I don't think the roadworks is a necessary part of it, or it could be just narrowed down to the actual entrance, so just a standard so they can turn in and out. My main question was around the number of containers, because my understanding is that they weren't actually wanting to increase. I was trying to go back to the old report and I couldn't find if they stated how many containers there are there now.
Through the chair, the application's for 68 shipping containers maximum.
Yep.
So that's what the approval.
Do you know how many are there now?
Well, I guess they fluctuate as they come and go.
That's all right.
Councillor Warner?
Thank you, through the chair. If this site was in an industrial area, it was undeveloped, and they were setting up this business to code, doing the right thing by us and the residents, because there was no residents around them, right? Would they have to upgrade the road to the standards?
Through the chair, it depends on the standard of their road. So you'd expect in an industrial zoned area, it would already have a fully constructed sealed lead-in road, frontage road. So there's not often roadworks associated with that.
Yeah, that's because we're talking about this one here, which is in a residential,
Rural.
or urban, yeah, urban sort of rural.
Yeah.
Yep, rightio. And what was the other one I was going to say? Never mind. I forgot.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Fredden?
I'm rather concerned at this thought of shipping containers moving in and out, and it's critical to the conditions because having to widen the road, my gut feels at least 5 metres wide, but I'm going on memory, which is shot, as you all heard. The reality is that road widening will kill it. It's such an important part of the application as to whether the containers are moving in and out or the two Pantex, which are coming and going all the time, are the method of transport. I would support no road upgrading for Pantex. This story that they're moving containers in and out does change it, and it does concern me. The other thing is we're going to get more and more of this sort of thing happening in what we used to call rural areas. We've only got, at the workshop, I showed you photographs up and down the road. There's an industrial site straight over the road. There's Council's Quarry almost next door. The reality is the next planning scheme, and I won't be here next term, but it's got to grapple with the fact that this is a way of businesses to get started, is to set up in remote areas, in a rural setting, and I think we have to look at our planning scheme to accommodate that. But in this particular case, it's new information to me that containers are being moved back and forth, and I would have wished that could have been clarified before today, but if it's true, I think it's madness moving furniture in containers all the time. I just don't know how that business pays. So I'm in a quandary myself, and the question is, it's probably too late now, but have they put in writing that they are moving containers in and out?
Through the chair, I believe it was part of the application that's submitted.
Can we confirm it?
Clarify. I haven't personally asked them.
Or is it possible that we, let's say for argument's sake that the recommendation was approved with conditions, but with the understanding that council is flexible on the negotiation, if it is just Pantex moving backwards and forwards, that our desire for the road upgrade is probably no.
Zero.
And if it is containers being moved backwards and forwards, that obviously significantly bigger than a Pantex, then that the road upgrade be considered. Is that sort of the feel of what you're suggesting, Councillor Freeman?
That's correct, Mr Mayor.
So with that in mind, councillors, if councillors have no more questions and are happy with the recommendation, Councillor Milne.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to I know I'm being particular, that's the way I am. This recommendation says that council as assessment manager approves. So in that wording, council's the assessment manager. I'm just trying to understand the terminology in there, because it seems, the way I read it, is that we're making the determination to approve it, and we've asked for conditions to go with it, but echoing what Councillor Fredman has raised is we don't actually know what the application is, so we're potentially approving something that don't even know what's been applied for. So can we clarify what those couple of words mean?
Through the chair, Councillor Milne, assessment manager is the terminology under the Planning Act. So a local government is an assessment manager for a development application, and that's why it goes in the recommendation for approval. I guess in terms of the application details, that was what was presented in the original report a couple of meetings ago. So that the staff do that assessment, outline the proposal, and then outline the assessment against the council's planning scheme, whether it complies with certain provisions. Does that answer your question?
It kind of does, because I mean, obviously the first recommendation is to refuse from a staff recommendation, but then it's a council desire, and it's that relevant matters that are at the end of it that satisfies the legislation to have those relevant matters in the recommendation, because without it, then our position is weak and challenged. So those relevant matters satisfy it enough to make it not putting us at risk. I'm asking about liability and risk if we do approve something, because we don't know.
Through the chair, that's correct. So staff formulated some relevant matters based on what we've heard at the discussion, and as the report suggests, you're welcome to embellish them, change them if we didn't get it right. So we took away that you think it's justified to approve it based on providing a community service, give the region back to the housing crisis, that you didn't think it was going to significantly impact the rural amenity of the immediate area, and that it provides some local economic benefit that maybe others have missed.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Fred.
I was interested that we require a consultant, a registered professional engineer, to prepare a stormwater management plan. Given that there's no earthworks being done on site, given that there's no concrete on site, given there's no roofs on site, why are we putting them to the cost of getting a professional engineering firm to do a stormwater management plan?
Through the chair, that's the referred to standard in the planning scheme, under the planning scheme policy.
Yeah.
This development application did come about as a result of a complaint, and I have to confirm this, but I believe one of the complaints was a solar issue.
Would you like that condition removed, councillor?
Look, I don't like to bludgeon staff, so to speak. I'm not sure how stormwater would have been an issue having had a look at the site, because there'd be no earthworks done. So it's not making sense to me. I'd like to leave it up to the planners to consider what I'm saying, rather than me saying that condition should go.
Yeah, staff can note the concerns, and then if there is discussions with the applicant in terms of appealing the conditions, I'm sure they can understand the position of council. Any other questions, councillors?
Sorry, can I just clarify,
Sure.
so everyone knows how it has to happen, but as you pass this recommendation, those conditions will have to actually be issued, and then the applicant can come back to us and query some of them, and then we can bring them back to you for a negotiated decision.
Yes. Councillor.
Question of you, Mr Mayor. This comes back to one of the issues I've raised in the past, is what's the role of our economic development officer? You see, planning's a very, as you've heard, a very formal process. Everything's written, and small business people like these people don't understand what they can do, what they can negotiate, what argument they could put up. I see a role for our economic development officer to get in there and help them, because too often do you hear that planning's a roadblock, and the people, when I inquire, haven't gone to the trouble of understanding the planning and getting help. So it's more to the CEO, I suppose, and we've discussed this before, I know, but to bridge the gap between the planners saying what they have to say because that's their profession, and us who want to see sensible development, is there any scope for the economic development officer to be in the middle?
I believe there's an opportunity there for someone like yourself, Councillor Fredman, in their spare time to
pocket money will be
services free of charge.
Money will be handy when trying to stamp out people charging.
Through the chair. Well, I appreciate Councillor Fredman's offer of support. We have actually started that process in a number of projects already, I believe, so we will continue that, and I have faith that our team will support this particular applicant along the way, but we've already started on that one, Councillor.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there. It's quite long with a number of conditions. Appreciate staff coming back with something that was in line with council's desires. Is there someone to move? Councillor Devro, someone to second. Councillor Smurden, Councillor Devro to speak.
Thank you. I'd like to reiterate, thank you to staff for enduring through this process, and hopefully the resident will be able to work their way through it and we'll get a result that's good for everyone. That's what we really want here. So, thank you.
Councillor Smurden.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Echo Councillor Devereux's comments. It's good that we've achieved what will hopefully be a workable result for the applicant. I just hope that common sense does prevail with all the conditions involved.
Two speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Councillor Mel.
I'm sitting in a bit of a conundrum looking at the recommendation, because it does put us as councillors at slight risk, because it is not in line with our planning scheme. But I do understand where the relevant matters have come in, and I thank staff for bringing those to us. And so this is where my conundrum is. We're setting a precedent that you can start something and then, not understand the planning, but where someone else can actually go through it and then realise they can't do it. And then we retrofit and go, well, we can do it. So my conundrum is that we have a process in place and then we might be setting a precedent. However, relevant matters is that they are doing actually a service that's helping people in need in the community. And that's, it's one of those conundrums. So I kind of am speaking against, but it's in caution of the risk, and I'm highlighting that I'm fearing risk on this one because of that. But yeah, we do want to support as a council those that are providing that service. So,
any other speakers for or against? Councillor Stewart.
Mr Mayor, I can certainly see where Councillor Milne's coming from, because people move into the area wanting a peaceful lifestyle, then next thing they know there's all these containers nearby. As a person representing the area, I'm either going to make someone happy or going to make someone sad. There we go. I do want to move an amendment to condition 10. So I would.
It's a bit late for that, Councillor Stewart.
I thought that is possible.
Well, we're actually into debate.
Well, that's why that's when you move amendments.
you can.
You remember?
Okay.
Yeah, right. Let's keep going.
When you move amendments, so in the first line of between upgraded and to, add the words around the truck entrance to the property. So Carlson Road is to be upgraded around the truck entrance to the property to achieve the ultimate rural local road. Even if it's containers, the reality is the road is so quiet that going along a 5 metre wide road, or whatever it is not going to have an impact. But I do think where it turns in and out, there is good reason. So that's the amendment I'd like to move.
So you want an amendment to the condition?
Yes, which is part of the whole recommendation. So, yeah.
So that the staff will need the wording.
Did you get it? Oh, sorry. I thought I was. So the road to first line, Carlson Road is the upgraded.
Restricted to the.
So immediately after upgraded, add around the truck entrance to the property.
And then.
Property. Okay, that's it.
And the bottom bit has to come off then.
It's two entrances.
Doesn't it?
It's an entrance and an egress.
Oh, okay. Entrance and egress to the property.
Entrances.
Entrances. They probably only use one. I don't know.
No, that is. I checked.
I learned to use only one. There you go.
And then delete this.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, that's better.
That's much better.
So with that in mind, Councillor Stewart, rather than go through the long-winded process of the amendment, given that we had discussed this topic, are the original movers and seconders happy with those changes and we can just continue on?
Well,
or do you want a specific?
No, I'm happy with
He
it.
moved it.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm happy. I think.
You're happy with that, Councillor Smith? Yeah. But we did have a further discussion around this. Right, okay.
Are we wanting
any other changes before we proceed?
The other, only I think is, are we wanting to put a time limit on it? I guess I should have asked that earlier. There was mention of it before.
It's got time limits in there, doesn't it? 6 months.
No, that's.
No, in terms of how long it's legitimate for the whole thing.
Well, this one is open-ended, yes. This is an approval. One go. So there has been a change there, councillors. Both mover and second are happy with that, and Councillor Stewart is happy to continue in the fashion we are. Is there any other speakers for and against? Councillor Friedman?
Mr Mayor, there's always conflict, as we've just heard, in rural areas. Noise is always a problem in rural areas, and it's a fact of life. I live next door to a dairy farm that wasn't there when I moved in. You want noise? Come round to my place at 4 o'clock in the morning. The reality is this hasn't been an easy one for our planning staff, but above all, we've got to be seen, I think, as a council that helps small business. And I think small business is what is going to characterise this region in the future. I don't see a lot of big business. Certainly Curra is a possibility, but I'll believe it when I see it. So I just am supporting it on the basis that these small businesses are going to crop up in the rural areas. They're not rural areas in the sense of rural production. They're rural areas in the housing density. And for that reason, I think it's a worthwhile application to support, and I hope future council supports many more.
Any other speakers for and against? Councillor Devereux to close.
Nothing more to add, thank you.
With that, we'll go to vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We do have that item in relation to the minutes. Staff have got one copy, hard copy of all the minutes. They haven't had an opportunity to get them in another couple of trees killed and printed out, but I believe they're going to try and bring it up on the screen there to show councillors the changes that are made.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, because of the size of the document, we've been unable to produce the required copies in time. I would also note that when the approval process for the council was going through the authorisation process, the attachment was there, and for some reason we've had a blocked off the majority of the documents. So councillors have all had a copy of the original minutes. And we've got a copy of the amended minutes on the screen, and we've highlighted the identified section where it changed. So the only change...
Sorry, so go to 6.4, please. There was a deletion of comments by Councillor Fredman, so that has gone. So if we just go up to 6.4, it's up above that, Christine, please.
H.
Yep. Thank you. That's been taken out. Any questions on that one? Okay, number 11.2, please. In here, it is exactly what you saw on attachment 2 that was in your report, except it has in here now verbally critiquing after Councillor Milne's feedback during the consultation process.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there. I think it was Councillor Devereux and Councillor Smerdon. I believe we've gone through those speaking for and against it, and it just comes down to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Polly, Waldock, Smerdon, Hartwig, Jensen, Devereux and Fredman. Against? Councillor Milne, Councillor Stewart. Thank you. That concludes our meeting for today. Our final meeting. Thank you for all the work you've done over the last term. I wish you all the best the upcoming Saturday.
Thank you, Waldock, for your great work. Sorry I won't be here.
I could have been witness.
I'll miss you.
I just had my camera ready
Keep the fridge full.
Bob Smalley, last time.
You know where the cold room is?
Yeah, maybe out a box of tissues.